Hello, my name is Tony. I've had several requests to revisit The Squeeze and it's taken me a while to get around to it. You see, there was this problem. I couldn't get hold of a Blu-ray copy because there isn't one. I couldn't find it on any of the streaming services because it isn't there. I couldn't use the version on YouTube because the quality is sodding dire. It looks like a rip of the VHS version I used to have years ago, but that's long gone. I never had it on DVD and so for a very reasonable 11 quid, I bought a shrink-wrapped copy from eBay, released under the Warner Brothers Archive Edition label. Essentially a US region-free import. The visual quality isn't brilliant, but at least it provided me with some usable images from the film. And more importantly, the chance to sit down, kick back, pour a glass of Penderyn single malt, crack a can of chilled Hobgoblin IPA, and immerse myself in this great little British gangster classic from the mid-70s. 11 quid well spent? Yeah, I would say so. How do films of this caliber end up so neglected and forgotten? Possibly because they were felt too indigenous to make much of an impact on the American market at the time, and perhaps too abrasive and aggressive in an unattractive, unflashy and forthright way. The Squeeze is modest, stripped back, mainlining on brutality and the baser aspects of criminality. Characters are unglamorous, damaged, lacking in empathy and do bad things minus the intrusion of a conscience to achieve their objectives. If someone is looking for a bright light, cheery dance around the maypole and skip merrily down the yellow brick road with a vibrating lightsaber up your arse to a sunbeam radiating happy ending sort of thing, they probably won't find it here. It's grim, in your face, neo-noir London-based gangster fatalism that doesn't flinch from the darkness in the heart of men. Oh, poetic or what? The lineup of talent involved has definite curb appeal. These include director Michael Apted. This was his third theatrical movie after The Triple Echo and Stardust. He had a broad experiential background in portraying the gritty, sharp end of life from extensive TV work, most notably on BBC's Play for Today platform and ITV Playhouse. The Squeeze is based on the novel Whose Little Girl Are You by David Craig. Craig was a pseudonym for prolific Welsh pulp novelist James Tucker, who also wrote under the names Bill James and Judith Jones. The screenplay is by Leon Griffiths, who had previously scripted the ultra-lurid Robert Aldrich gangster flick The Grissom Gang, and later went on to create the light-hearted ITV crime comedy series Minder, with Dennis Waterman and George Cole, which is a complete about-face from the sleaze and violence of his movie resume. The cast is a roll call of singularly appealing talents. Stacy Keach, a skilled American actor who first made his name as a Shakespearean stage performer in the States. He had a specific talent for portraying quiet, silk and bourbon-voiced conflicted tough guys with a nuanced and vulnerable edge. He'd made London his home for a number of years prior to The Squeeze, so geographically was in the right place for it. Carol White, a naturalistic and improvisational actress, became known in the 60s in the seminal downbeat working-class kitchen sink TV plays Cathy Come Home and Up the Junction, as well as Ken Loach's socially astute and painfully real cinema production Poor Cow. Achingly pretty in an authentic and careworn way, genuine sexuality without the hollow glamour, more upmarket reader's wife than airbrush centerfold pinup. Stephen Boyd, Chuck Heston's chariot-riding adversary in Ben-Hur, appears in this his last theatrical role as a volatile Irish gang boss Vic, a man visibly bristling with simmering menace and bad intentions. David Hemmings, Edward Fox, Stuart Harwood, Roy Marsden and Alan Ford in support, as well as a surprisingly competent, sensitive and impressive performance from frenetic TV comedian Freddie Starr as Keach's loyal and sympathetic friend Teddy in what was only his second but sadly last big screen role, which, based on the evidence here, is something of a shame because as a dramatic actor he's not half bad. It's backed up by David Henschel's screechy and resonant score and framed by downcast, faintly trashy and somber cinematography from Dennis Lewiston, who would later work on the visuals for domestic abuse and rape exploitation piece The Brute and Joan Collins' softcore porn opus and sequel to The Stud, The Bitch. All in all, sound a pretty darn tasty proposition. The crack is this. Jim Naboth, Stacy Keach, is an ex-Scotland Yard detective kicked off the force for intractable chronic alcoholism. He's a wreck of a man, a habitual loser, the epitome of the term his own worst enemy. When we first meet him, he's drunk and almost incapable on the London Underground. He falls down an escalator and is admitted to hospital, where he undergoes aversion therapy for his alcoholism, which is really successful, because on discharge the first thing he does is head to the nearest pub for a dry sherry, which he reasons isn't really drinking. Yeah, right. Sherry, for those not in the know, is often the booze of choice for near financially destitute drunks. You can get it cheap and nasty, and it's more alcoholically charged than you might think. How do I know this? Take a wild stab, guys. Naboth's only friend, apart from Barbara, Hilary Gasson, a promiscuous young nurse he begins a sexual relationship with, is Teddy, Freddie Starr. Teddy is a petty criminal and minicab driver, who Naboth helped through a jam when he was on the force. Teddy is fiercely loyal to and supportive of Naboth and wants him to begin a new career as a private investigator. Naboth would rather go get pissed. Jim is divorced, has a house in Notting Hill, London, and astonishingly custody of his 2 young sons. They were all abandoned by Jill, Carol White, who left them to marry Foreman, Edward Fox, the wealthy owner of a private security firm which transports large sums of cash around the capital in armoured and guarded vehicles. Shortly after Naboth's discharge from hospital, Foreman bursts into his house in a panic looking for Carol and their daughter Christine. Their abduction from a park is shown in flashback. Carol, the girl, and the family dog are snatched by a gang led by Keith David Hemmings and comprised of Barry Roy Marsden, Taff Alan Ford and Des Stewart Harwood. With Jill and Christine stashed at a secret location, Keith contacts Foreman in his office when Naboth is present. A meeting is arranged for that evening on a bridge spanning a stretch of motorway. Naboth advises involving the police, but Foreman wants to handle things privately. He orders Naboth to stay out of it. This doesn't have much impact on Jim though, as he follows Foreman to the meet and recognises Keith as he drives past. He once put Keith away for 3 years when he was a cop. The gang drive away, indicating Foreman should follow. Keith shows Foreman Christine in the back of the car with him. Then what looks like a body wearing Christine's yellow raincoat is thrown from the moving vehicle. Foreman, trailing behind, runs over it. Oops. Rushing to the corpse, Foreman discovers it's the butchered remains of the family dog. It's a demonstration that these guys aren't fucking about. Keith contacts Foreman again. The gang want his assistance in robbing one of his own armoured trucks containing £1 million in cash. Naboth, having recognised Keith, knows he works for Irish gang boss Vic Smith, Stephen Boyd. In a rash and almost fatally stupid move, he breaks into Vic's house and is confronted by a shotgun-toting Vic and beaten up by one of Vic's minions wielding a pickaxe handle. Stripped naked and interrogated, Naboth first pretends he broke in to find some booze, unaware that it was Vic's place. This doesn't wash, so after some more physical therapy, he tells him that Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs has employed him as a freelance investigator to find evidence of Vic's business assets, to build a case for tax evasion. He broke in to look for documents. Vic seems to accept this story and he and his goon generously drop Naboth off in Notting Hill, stark naked apart from a shoe and a free bottle of whiskey. Keith is rattled by the mention of Naboth poking around. No one makes the connection that he's Jill's ex-husband. So Vic suggests he tell Foreman to kill him, to give them even more leverage over the businessman. Foreman invites Jim onto his yacht with the aim of shooting him, but Naboth figures out that something's out of sorts and attacks Foreman, relieving him of his weapon. They decide to fake Naboth's death. Foreman will tell Keith he shot him, panicked, stripped him and threw his body in the river. He will provide his clothes and social security card as evidence. Jim goes dark and he and Teddy carry out surveillance on Jim's house. Soon one of the gang members turns up asking questions, but the social services carer looking after Jim's boys advise that he hasn't been seen for days. Jim and Teddy tail the goon to a derelict factory where they find and rescue Christine, who's been locked up and left there to die. The day of the robbery, Vic, Keith and the rest, with Jill dragged along as insurance, set out in a stolen minivan to hit the armoured vehicle. The gang are tooled up with sawn-off shotguns and pickaxe handles. Foreman has been instructed to travel in the security van and breach the combination lock when the robbery takes place. Question is, how will a hopeless loser drunk and his low-rent criminal partner foil this ruthless heist and secure Jill safe release? What exactly is the plan? How can they pull it off? The Squeeze is worth your while if you're interested in a tough, unflinching and borderline exploitational slice of London gangland noir that doesn't shy away from poking into the darker corners of the human psyche. One of the things that sets it apart in the genre is the central character of Jim Naboth. Stacy Keach is an actor sensitive to human frailties. He'd played an alcoholic cop before opposite George C. Scott in Richard Fleischer's The New Centurions. This time though, his portrayal is of a man who has fallen so low he finds a place and camaraderie with homeless winos living beneath an inner city underpass and swigging methylated spirits. Jim Naboth is the archetypal loser. Even a playful kickabout ends with one of his kids booting a football into his face, causing a nosebleed. Keach is utterly convincing. He wisely steers clear of attempting an English accent, keeping his vocals firmly in neutral territory, hitting some transatlantic middle ground so that he sounds as if he could be from any given English-speaking country anywhere. It's unforced and non-fake, whereas riffing on a broad Cockney dialect would have sounded inauthentic at best. As humiliation is heaped on humiliation, he retains a guttering flame of determination, tempered by flickers of human decency and investigative brio that struggle to rise to the surface. But those facets are there. The real Jim Naboth is glimpsed in defiant flashes. When he's stripped naked and beaten into cowed submission at the bar in Vic's home, a hood approaches to batter him again with a pickaxe handle, and Jim lashes out, backhanding him to the floor. When Foreman tries to kill him, he clinically assaults the man, disarming him with unexpected skill and ease. These moments reveal the man beneath the shroud of alcohol and burnout. He is not to be written off and underestimated, but he is, and that's a mistake. The on-screen relationship between Keach and Freddie Starr's character Teddy has some great chemistry going for it. Teddy stands by him no matter what, no matter how exasperating and soul-destroying Naboth's behaviour becomes. When he goes missing the night before the heist and gets falling down drunk, Teddy drags him to a massage parlour for a cold shower, sauna and rub down by a sexy prostitute. When Jim emerges from the treatment, sober and dressed in the suit and tie Teddy stole for him from Debenhams, it's the keynote moment when the smooth operator Naboth used to be is finally back in the saddle. Satisfying. Stephen Boyd, a million miles away from his Hollywood beefcake pin-up image, lays on the blarney and bluster a bit thick with his Irish accent, but makes a good evil villain. He's particularly vile and obnoxious. He has his own young daughter who has a pet dog, but has absolutely no compunction about ordering the slaughter of Christine's canine chum to send a message to Foreman, a negligible concern regarding her pending murder by incarceration and neglect. A callous hypocrite. Hemmings is cold and creepy as gang leader Keith, and those under his leadership are thick, callous thugs without conscience. At the end of their endeavours, they're going to be party to the murder of a mother and child. They've hidden neither their faces nor identities, so it's pretty clear where this is intended to go. Their abuse and sexual objectification of Carol White's character Jill emphasises their toxic masculinity and reveals leeringly unsavoury attitudes towards women. She is made to dance and strip for their amusement while they leer and stare. Somehow Jill turns this situation around to make them uncomfortable in ways they're too stupid to understand. And when Keith tells her that one of them is going to have sex with her, but she can choose who it is, she tells them to flip a coin, making the point that she finds all of them equally repugnant, so it doesn't really matter. As it turns out, Keith imposes his will as leader, and it's him, yet he begins to feel uneasy. Jill has used her sexuality to get under his skin. The heist at the end is a vicious, tense and deliciously crunching affair. When a motorcycle cop turns up, Vic blasts him with a shotgun without thinking twice. He careers into the getaway van, splatting on the windscreen like an oversized bug. As they make their getaway, Naboth has blocked the road. He and Teddy are stood there. Naboth has a schoolgirl by his side and a gun to her head. Initially, they think it's Christine, but Vic suddenly realizes it's his own daughter. Taking a leaf out of the villain's book, Jim has become every bit as ruthless and manipulative as they are. Unable to take a gamble on what an unstable alcoholic might or might not do, Vic releases Jill. But then Naboth tells him to leave the money also. The scene is set for a climactic shootout with the added mayhem of crashing vehicles and wrecked shop fronts, and a wholly satisfying payoff. The Squeeze is violent, grueling entertainment in which the bad guys are particularly reprehensible and dislikable scumbags, and the heroes are emotionally damaged reprobates, sociological fringe dwellers struggling to achieve redemption and impose restitution. It stands comfortably in line with the usual suspects of the genre and bears favourable comparison with them. And good God, yes, seeing it again after such a long time, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's tightly scripted, well directed, well acted, and the beatings, nudity, gore and punchy action make it feel experientially reminiscent of a supercharged feature-length episode of The Sweeney. Thematically, it confronts the reactions and behaviours of essentially morally decent people and other seriously morally bankrupt people when placed under extreme self-imposed and uncontrollable pressure and stress. Valor, honour and decency, tarnished as it may be, wins out in the end. so hooray for that. The Warner DVD print is the best quality version I'm aware of, so if you want to see it, I'd recommend getting that. Like I said earlier, 11 quid well spent. Thank you for your time and attention, I'm indebted. If you feel so compelled, leave a comment, hit like or didn't like, or subscribe to the channel. I'll be back when I can. But meanwhile, here's a song called Space Time, for no other reason than it's there. Good as any.
And take to the hills, back to the old town with petrol to spill. For the deserts don't care if we live or we die, and nor does the sun or the moon in the sky. Wrap me in linen and lay me to rest, and wait till the last breath has died in my chest. For while I still breathe, I can't take one more slug. Keep your hands to yourself, don't go pulling the plug. Time is elastic, shrinks and expands. Whatever becomes of what came before. Don't you let go of my hands, and I won't let go of yours. Capture the castle and herd all the sheep, high in the mountains where rivers run deep. Apparent in moments the world could be yours, but you'd rather fixate on the settling of scores. Give me the fiction as facts bored to death of the space-time continuum. There isn't much left when the stars have gone out and there's only the black. The backstabbing starts stabbing when there's no turning back. Elastic, shrinks and expands. Whatever becomes of what came before. Don't you let go of my hands, and I won't let go of yours. Universe exploded cold and silently. Cosmic chunks of lunar gunk and space debris, sparkling to oblivion and eternity. You killed what's inside of me, the very heart of me. Time is elastic, shrinks and expands. Whatever becomes of what came